حي على الفلاح.
نحمده ونصلي ونسلم على رسوله الكريم وصحبه واتباع الحماة الدين القويم. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. اللهم اجعلنا دعاة إليك وإلى رسولك. اللهم صل على سيدنا وشفيعنا وحبيبنا ومولانا محمد مبارك وسلم. رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. وقال الله سبحانه وتعالى في القرآن الكريم: فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. أفمن يخلق كمن لا يخلق أفلا تذكرون. وقال النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم: كن في الدنيا كأن غريب وعابر سبيل. وكان عمر بن الخطاب يقول: إذا أمسيت فلا تنتظر صباح وإذا أصبحت فلا تنظر السماء. وبعد، إن الحمد لله تعالى. All praise and all glory is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah Rabbul Izzah, in His infinite mercy, has indeed blessed us to reach the month of Rajab. And we make dua to the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam that Allah blessed us with life so that we reach the month of Ramadan, inshallah. Allahumma ameen. Although the ni'mat and the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah Rabbul Izzah has given us in the Quran a very important nasiha and advice when He says to us in relationship towards our journey, O traveler. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in the Quran, know your journey. Know your journey in this life. A person who wants to become a doctor, they know what they have to study to become a doctor. They won't do anything different to achieve that goal. If you want to become an engineer, you know what you have to do to become an engineer, what you have to do to actually achieve that goal. And each and everything in this world, as a human being, we have already understood and created institutions and places and direct our children and our lives towards those goals that we want to achieve in this life. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala also has the goal or the objective and the maqsad for each and every believer. What is your goal in this life as a believer? What is your objective in this life as a believer? And that the Quran has already given the guidelines of the goal of a believer. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala firstly draws our attention to understand clearly, who is this Allah? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, أَفَمَنْ يَخْلُقُ. Who it is? He says, is that one. أَفَمَنْ يَخْلُقُ كَمَنْ لَا يَخْلُقُ. The one who can create, is he similar to the one who cannot create? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws this reference to us in Surah Al-Nahl, and He tells us, when He asks this question, is to draw our attention to that person when He says, أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. Are you not pondering, thinking and understanding what you are doing in life? أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. You're not remembering what you have to do? What is your purpose here? What is your objective here? You have been created with this purpose. أَفَلَا تَذَكَّرُونَ. And He says, أَفَمَنْ يَخْلُقُ. The one who creates, is that one equal to the one who cannot create? So Allah says, they are not the same. Allah says, even in the creation of the things that man would worship other than Allah, they cannot even give life, nor even take life. And they cannot even return life. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws this in the Quran and said that these creations of the things that we think that we can worship besides Allah, they cannot do anything. And then amongst the creation, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the things that you even worship beside the idols, beside the things that are of the creation, even the human beings that you adopt as worship, they themselves cannot even resurrect their own selves. They cannot even bring themselves to life. It is Allah. Why Allah would mention it like this? So that we would understand that even amongst the creation, the living ones that we see moving, walking, talking, and who even emulates a life of righteousness, and even some amongst the Anbiyas, the prophets, even people will worship the prophets. And they will worship their saints. And they will worship people in this direction. And Allah says, even amongst those that you would worship, they cannot even bring life to anyone, nor can they even bring their own selves to life. So Allah Rabbul Izzah draws attention of both types of the creation that people would worship. And then He says, who is equal? أَفَمَنْ يَخْلُقُ كَمَنْ لَا يَخْلُقُ? Can they ever be equal? They can never be equal. أَفَلَا يَذَكَّرُونَ? So be mindful of who you are worshipping. It is Allah. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, if you were to count the favors of Allah upon you, وَإِن تَعُدُّوا نِعْمَةَ اللَّهِ, if you were to count the favors of Allah upon you each and every day, لَا تُحْصُوهَا, you will never be able to enumerate these favors that Allah has blessed us with each and every day. إِنَّ اللَّهَ غَفُورٌ رَحِيمٌ. Allah says He's ever merciful and ever forgiving to His believers. The objective of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala drawing in these ayats of Quran for us, these verses, is to come to the reality, my dear brothers, my dear sisters, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, you are favored by me, and yet you deny me worship. I give you life, yet there are people who disobey me. I give you every single condition for existence as a human being, and yet you would turn to worship something that cannot even do anything for you. I will give you everything, and yet you will do something contrary to the orders of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Even the believer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, I've given you everything, and yet what do? You go against my purpose that I have made you for. So Allah Rabbul Izzah says, count your blessings, count your favors that Allah has put upon you. What are these favors that you get each and every day? You only miss the favors where you don't have it. And when it's no longer with you, then you understand what that favor is. A person who is in that condition of sickness then will understand what was good health. A person who has poverty, when he has wealth, he understands what that value is. A person who has wealth sometimes thinks he did not understand what is poverty and how to appreciate what he has. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His infinite mercy says, count each and every favor. You have family with you, you have a spouse with you, count that favor with you, because that's something you have with you that Allah has blessed you with. And take that as a favor, because you don't know which day one could leave you. And you'll be by yourself, and then you get to realize what you really miss or what you really have. And He says, do not forget this favor of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made your journey in relationship and purpose in life with understanding who is your Allah. You wake up in the morning from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's favor. Life was given to you for next day. What do you start that day with? What do you start that day with? Umar ibn al-As radiallahu ta'ala anhu, he says, Ad-dunya daran, says this world for a believer, al-mu'min, this world for a believer is the amal for the hereafter. He says the world here is your work for the hereafter. Your job in this world as a believer is to work for the hereafter. And what is the amal and the work for the hereafter? So he says, amongst the amals of the work for the hereafter, he says, that person, he makes the understanding of every single amal salihah, every good deed that he can do or she can do, they make effort on it. Never leave it out. Because the days of these work that we are given to do for the hereafter is not to collect pay month end or next 10 years. We ain't sure about month end and we ain't sure about 1 week work. But the day that we are given to do this work is today. Not tomorrow and not next week. It is today. He said the amal of the deen of a believer, his life, every day he lives with this consciousness that my work is today. I'm not sure about tomorrow. You know, that person is hustling. They have no money in their pocket. Anyway they get at work, they are saying no because they want the what? Money. This is the life of a believer. We must make every day a hustle for us for the hereafter. Make the effort on the hustle because we need each and every day. We cannot lose one day. We cannot lose one day. We cannot lose that time because that hustle and that time will never come back. That time will never come back. So the effort that he's saying, Umar ibn al-As is saying, this is the amal and the attitude of a believer. A real mu'min considers each day with this value in mind, that I cannot miss this time. I have to do something with it. And sometimes we tell ourselves we can lay back. But he says no. How can we think like this as a believer? It is of the importance that we utilize that time, that it allows us who have the desire, the one who really has a desire to be protected and saved from the fire of hell and make entry into paradise, then that one goes on this dhikr. He remembers his position and his end result and makes effort on it. And he says, that time when it comes to him, all of mankind will race towards that day. But what will you achieve on that day? Allah Rabbul Izzah, in His infinite mercy, draws this first attention to us in the Quran when He says, look who is your Allah, what is your purpose? And then Allah Rabbul Izzah in His infinite mercy then tells us in the Quran in relationship to the one who really strives for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He says, وَمَن يُسْلِمْ وَجْهَهُ, and the one who submits to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. وَمَن يُسْلِمْ وَجْهَهُ, who makes his entire maqsad and goal and purpose for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. إِلَى اللَّهِ وَهُوَ مُحْسِنٌ, and he's a true practicing good believer. He says, فَقَدْ اسْتَمْسَكَ بِالْعُرْوَةِ الْوُثْقَى, that example of that one, he holds on to the rope of Allah, the deen of Allah. Allah says, this person, he holds on to the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He doesn't let it go. وَإِلَى اللَّهِ عَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ, and he knows that all matters, all affairs return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He knows that his day, every action will return to Allah. My life, every moment of it, that whatever I do with it, each and every moment of the actions of my life is going to return to Allah. What can I tell myself of these moments that Allah has allowed me to live? وَعَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ, Allah Rabbul Izzah is saying to us that this is the condition of the believer. Every aspect of your life matters because everything on this journey, each and every day, is going to return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What can we hide from this return? Which part of the package we could cut off? What of our life that we want to blot it off that doesn't reach before Allah? We have to be conscious. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, yes, we all have our downhills and uphills, and we all have our faults and all our blocks in our lives. But the understanding that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying, وَعَاقِبَةُ الْأُمُورِ, that every single interaction in our life is going to reach before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So each day we step forward into this world that Allah has given to us. What are our dealings with one another? What is our relationship with our worship before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala? How can we tell ourselves in our life today, when we look at our everyday dealings, we ask ourselves, what will be my next job tomorrow? Is it one game to our next game? A young man, one game to our next game, and the whole night end up in what? Games? Is it one party to our next party? Is it one job to our next job? Is this how we plan our day every day? What do we really want out of each day? Or are we planning our life as a mu'min, as a believer should plan their life? Allah has created for us believers an example in Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Allah has set this example for us. Allah has given us the best of example. What was his life on a daily basis? What was the life of the Sahabas on a daily basis, his companions? What was their striving? Not that they didn't work, not that they didn't have family to mind, not that they didn't have all of the things that me and you strive for every day, but what was their main strive? What was their main effort? What are the things that we read in the books of Hadith, in the Seerah, that made their distinction before Allah, that Allah became pleased with them? What was the condition that Allah became pleased with them? Because they made that effort, what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala had given, that is most important to become earning the pleasure of Allah. And they become that pleasurable person before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given that opportunity to each and every one of us to earn from the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to earn His pleasure, to strive for that pleasure each and every moment that is given to us. How do we strive for it? That is already given to us. It is a given. It is not something we have to discover. It is something we have to attach our lives to, attach our time to. Don't let our time become distracted by the things that take away time. And that's why the Rasul sallallahu alaihi wasallam mentioned to us, أَكْثِرُ بِحَاضِمِ اللَّذَاتِ. He says, make abundance, remembrance of the thing that takes away the pleasures of this world, death. We always have a desire to live the pleasure of this life. But if we remember maut, death, and what we have to do for that, the pleasures will disappear. The sweetness of the things that we so long want to have and enjoy. Not that we shouldn't enjoy. Not that we should enjoy what Allah has given us in this world, no. But it shouldn't take us away from the main job as a believer. As a believer. So Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam warns us, Akfiru, remember that which takes away the pleasure and the desires of this world, and that is death. Why mention this? Because Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam keeps us in check, so that we do not deviate from our purpose of life. Sahabas radiallahu ta'ala, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the Quran, that He was pleased with them because of their effort for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. What is our objective? What is our main life as a believer? We cannot be like those who, man kafara fala yahzun kufru. Those who had that disbelief away and their unbelief and had no other condition of anything else except the desires of this world. When they will reach the other condition, ilayna marji'uhum, and when they will return to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when they will go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, فَنُنَبِّئُهُمْ بِمَا عَمِلُوا, and Allah will inform them of their actions. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, إِنَّ اللَّهَ عَلِيمٌ بِذَاتِ الصُّدُورِ. Allah knows what is in the hearts of each and every one. Those who deny Allah and live the life other than Allah, but everyone will return to Allah. And those who disbelieve and deny this objective and purpose of life, they will also return to Allah. And Allah will also inform them of their actions. And Allah will show them of their deceit, and Allah will show them of what they have denied themselves of the obedience of Allah. So Allah has indeed favored us, my dear brothers, my dear sisters, with Iman. Allah has indeed favored us with the Deen al-Islam. Allah has given us guidance. The next step for us to do is to make the extra effort as a believer. Make the extra step towards improving our life for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Allah has given us many opportunities, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made the door open for us. Amongst the greatest of opportunities is that Allah has made ibadat, salah, 5 times a day upon us. This is the month of Rajab. We also think about what? The Mi'raj. One of the most important things of our life. But if that comes into order, our life comes into order, is our 5 times daily prayer. Fix that in order. fix it in order. Order means we start getting them perform 5 times each day, no matter where we are. And then we strive a little better, try to get it in the masjid. The next step from one to the next, try to get it in the masjid. And then surround our work so that it will take us to the masjid for our 5 times daily prayer. Wherever we are in this country, we are so favored. Any part that you know, we could walk, we could drive, we could find a masjid. Utilize our time and try to navigate our life around that. And then everything will work for us by the help of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Then we start to make effort on the other things. One by one they will fall in place. But if we don't strive as a believer to do some things that will benefit us, that Allah has offered us, then how are we going to move forward if we remain distracted? May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in His infinite mercy open up this door for us and open our hearts to this thinking as a true mu'min will strive to achieve the goal of this life and achieve the true benefits for the next life, inshaAllah. May Allah guide you and me, and may Allah forgive us our shortcomings, inshaAllah. Sadaqallah wa sadaqa rasulih al-kareem wa akhirna alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen.
حي على الفلاح